Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now, let the stories begin. Oh boy, is this fun. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to this amazing celebration. I call it the Celebration of You. And the really cool thing is that I get to celebrate amazing people all the time that I get the privilege of meeting around the world. So before I introduce you to this extraordinary man who has become, actually, he's like the brother from another mother. That sounds very odd, but it's true because we connected. Yeah, I know you're already giggling, aren't you?
Maybe.
No, we're going to have some fun. But I just want to take a moment. And I know for so many people, I've been really doing a lot of shout outs and thanking. It's unbelievable. We're people from every continent, from so many countries, and I've been doing those shout outs. I just want to pause and say thank you. I'm hearing remarkable stories of people's lives who are being impacted and changed for the better because of a story they heard. And that is why this show was a mission put on my heart. So I just want to thank everybody out there. And I won't go through all the countries again. But the cool thing about this person you're about to meet is he and I have like a shared passion. He's also an amazing speaker, messenger, somebody that truly believes in uplifting people. And well, without further ado, because I'm going to brag on him, and I know he's just sitting there dying. I know you're giggling. Welcome, Ryan Foland, to the Celebration of Ryan today.
Ahoy! It is great to be here.
And you were going to be on your boat, so let's just tell everybody.
So, we're off by a couple days on the scheduling, but I was on my boat all weekend, and sailing home, I was having Holly withdrawals. Hashtag Holly withdrawals.
Ooh, that was adorable.
But you know what? Whether I'm on a boat, whether I'm on a plane, whether I'm in a car, whether I'm in an office, it's all the same because I carry my story with me wherever I go in an invisible book in my back pocket.
Ooh, okay, wait, this is going to be so fun because you see, I got a glimmer, just a glimmer when I was a guest on your show and you took me through this really amazing, profound and yet so simple process. So I'm going to dangle the carrot a little bit and I'm going to let you share with us this, but you literally created what is now a globally renowned method called 313. Hang on, everybody. You'll find out more about the 313, but I want to brag too because you're so humble, Ryan. And that is what I love about so many of the guests I've been privileged to share your story. But you've been recognized by Inc. magazine as a top youth marketer. You were named Entrepreneurs magazine top personal branding expert. I mean, you've got so many amazing things. You host your own podcast show. You also have a radio show, which I can't wait. I'm going to be with you in October.
Yeah, you're coming to town.
I am. And I mean, you just continue to do things. But what's so beautiful, and I'm going to use the word beautiful about you, is you do it with such grace, you do it with such passion, and where do we start? Why don't you brag a little bit? Gilligan's Island. Let's just take everybody there. Tell us a little bit about what you're passionate right now in your world with all that you have going on.
Yeah, well, we had had a slight offline conversation where there are so many amazing things that are happening right now. The only negative thing I can find is that I have so many amazing things going on right now. And that's kind of a hashtag first world problem. But all of these things, the reason why I take any new project or any new task on is because it is answering the one question which you asked, which is, what is this one thing that I'm passionate about? And I really believe that if you don't know where you're going, you'll never get there unless you just want to aimlessly sail around, and that's totally cool. But I have sort of set this vision for myself to empower people the best way that I can in the least amount of time with the most simplistic process I can create. Because at the end of the day, the more complex a solution is, the less likely people will use it, implement it, or that'll have lasting effect.
Amen.
And
totally.
I do believe I'm big in the startup world. I'm an entrepreneur who has badges of failure, and I wear them proudly because that's where I've learned my most amazing lessons. But at the end of the day, I really think communication is a skeleton key. The same thing that gets me into music concerts for free, or to the front of a row, or opportunities that would have never happened, or communicating to a loved one, expressing my love, or asking for, saying excuse me in a certain way that moves by people where they're like, whoa, that's cool. And I think that whatever you do in life, there's an element of communication. So much that even you can't not communicate. Even if you're trying to not communicate, someone will read that you are trying to not communicate. There's over 4,000 micro gestures that happen in your face that other humans recognize, but a lot of times they're subconscious and you don't know. And this idea of more effective, more efficient communication is something that is at the top of my journey. And
love this.
The more I can help empower people, the more fulfilled I am. And that's why, I came from a family of educators. My mom was an English teacher and the cheerleading coach. My dad was a PE teacher and ended up coaching football. And they had an interesting sort of interaction that they met and sparks flew, and there they go. But I grew up where education was the number one thing. You can do whatever you want, except wear baggy pants and accept smoking, but anything else you want, as long as you get good grades. And so I've just been ingrained with this concept. And the more I teach, the more I learn. And that's why I think teaching is such an amazing experience for my own personal growth. And you wouldn't think, I know I have so much respect for teachers and educators because, they're so dedicated to helping other people. And I really think it is true that in order to help yourself, helping other people gets you there so much faster.
Oh
so
my
where
God, it's so
where
true.
am I going with all this? It's that I feel the most value I can deliver is to help people realize one simple truth. And it's that success is not found by doing what everybody else, what nobody can do. There's this, people want success, whether it's a successful podcast or a successful business. But successful people don't do what everybody else cannot do. Successful people do what everyone can do, but not everybody does. And when it comes to improving your communication skills, that is the one thing. If you master communication, no matter where you're at in life, you will upgrade. Whether it's a promotion, whether it's better relationships, whether it's, across the board, that is where my passion lies, is in helping people say more by saying less. And this 313 concept has come about over, maybe 5 years now of my own research and my own development and working with thousands of entrepreneurs and getting to the root of one of their biggest problems, which is they can't explain their idea in a short amount of time, such that they lose millions of dollars. They go out of business. They get divorced. To an extreme extent, some people even take their own lives over their inability to get across what they want into the world. So by making a system or a method, this 313 process takes people through a series of, limiting questions with constraints, and it helps people communicate what they do in 3 sentences, and then 1 sentence, and ultimately 3 words.
So give us an example. I got to go there right now. Let's go.
Sure.
Yeah,
so
this is so powerful stuff. Yeah.
If somebody ever asks you what you do, most people will tell you what they do. But I really think that human nature and interest is driven off of problem solving. I don't care what you do. I don't care what the next person does. I don't think people care what anybody does unless to some root it's solving a problem that they have. And so imagine if someone asks you, what is it that you do? And you answer to them, well, it's not really what I do that's important. It's the problem that I solve. And that is sort of the concept behind this 313, where if you can explain the problem that you solve, it sets off a series of events to where you can engage the person you're talking with to learn more about them and if your solution is relevant for them. Because I like to say that the more you talk, the less people listen. And the less you talk, the more people are going to ask questions, and questions drives conversations, and conversations creates connection. And then that's where the real magic happens. So if I were to meet someone for the first time and they were to ask me what I do, I'll oftentimes look at them and say, well, it's not really what I do that's important. It's the problem that I solve. Then they ask me, well, what problem do you solve? And I tell them it's the single biggest problem that I've identified that entrepreneurs have. And it gets them more interested. And they're like, tell me what the problem is.
What is the problem? Please.
And so
Yes.
the problem that I solve is that entrepreneurs, especially early stage, have a miserable time explaining their idea in a very short amount of time, which leaves them broke and failing miserably until they can somehow convince somebody that their idea is good. You can have the best idea, but if you can't communicate it, it's done.
So what's a great success story with that? Tell me, like right now, top of mind, you didn't even know we were going to do this.
Sure.
What is top of mind, a success story that you just had recently, or maybe in the past, where you did this with somebody and it was like an aha, huge moment revelation of what the 313 did?
Sure. Well, I always like to share my client successes, and I have an individual that I actually had her on a radio show, and sometimes I'll have people give their own version of a pitch, and then I'll work with them on the 313, and that helps them to revise what they're saying, and then now they're more empowered. And she was terrible at explaining what she was doing. And what I was able to do is help her recraft everything into this 313 concept. And she actually had a meeting with 2 or 3 investors the next day. And she landed $1 million deal that has since gone through. She is now one of the top retailing sellers on Overstock, now has a deal with Walmart, is flying out to New York this week to go meet with Google as one of a hand-selected companies that is going to be preferred on some of their SEO as like an accelerator. And she's now raising $4 million. She started this worldwide campaign because she focuses on fashion for plus-size women called A Confident You, hashtag A Confident You. And she does not let me forget that there was this moment where she went from being totally freaked out about trying to explain in a bumbling way what she does to focusing on explaining the problem she solves, how she solves it, and who she solves it for, and then stopping her conversation and now engaging, letting people interact and have them ask questions. And that's just one example where just it gives me the goosebumps to think of how just the way you can communicate can land you that deal that can have this series of sequential events that are just really powerful, and it's exciting. So that's just a total top of mind because I still talk with her and she keeps sharing her successes based on that alone.
I love that. Yeah. And when you think about, and what's so cool is to hear your passion and just the energy coming through you, Ryan. You can tell it's like, it's so a part of who you are and why you are on this earth right now. This is what you figured out your purpose. You know what you've been destined to do. And it sounds to so many people, right? Why is it so difficult to communicate with such clarity and ease what we do? And I think we get so immersed in what we do that we overcomplicate it. To what you said a few things, and I want to go back to something that was really powerful when you were talking about communication and the whole piece about 4,000, right? Micro pieces to this. And I thought about what you said, because how many people, right? We don't even put 2 cents to thinking about how we're showing up in the world. And communication is as much of what you say and how you show up, and as much as what you don't say when you show up, right? And that's what I love about you. You're helping people. To me, it's the art. I think we talked about this on your show, but to me, the greatest gift that somebody can give another human being is to be a great listener. And when you've been truly listened to, it feels just as close to being loved. So few people listen anymore. It's like asking questions and then listening. And that's what I'm gathering is at the heartbeat of communication. It's understanding how to communicate with clarity, but also how to know how to ask questions and sit back. And it sounds like this has been a gift of yours for so long. And I want to know, I want to go to the early years of Ryan, because Ryan and I actually have we have a show we both grew up loving and watching, and that was Gilligan's Island. So by the way, yes, his nickname is Ginger, and I didn't know what that was until he and I.
Ginger MC, the Ginger MC, the Ginger with the mic control.
Oh, that's right. It's got to have the MC part, right, Dave, baby?
Yeah. Hashtag Ginger MC. You know, it's all part of that brand.
It is. It's the branding. It is. But take us back to when, you know, your younger years. And I don't know if this goes to elementary, high school, maybe college, but tell us about what was the pivotal moment for you? And maybe it was facing some adversity that made you just kind of go, this is who I don't want to be. This is who I want to be. Take us through a journey that impacted you.
Yeah. So on the topic of being ginger, right? I've got freckles and I was a tote head, and I spent my summers in Catalina and classically had very freckled cheeks and very white eyeballs around where my sunglasses always were, and sun in my, lemon in my hair, and was just kind of my own creature. And I thought that was cool, but it wasn't, at least for the cooler kids. And so I really was plagued and was a target for bullying at quite an early age. And it really took a toll. I don't think people really understand how influential that kind of outcasting is at an early age. And just kind of a basics, just one of my most, I don't know, it's hard to even find the words. Like a very challenging memory for me was classically never being picked for the basketball team. Like, even if there was maybe an extra, like there was still room for another person and they just wouldn't pick me. And that just kind of, that creates two options, right? You either get angry or you come up with solutions. And my mom was always good about coming up with solutions. So when I stopped getting, picked for the team, then we went out and got my own basketball. And then I created my own team, and then turned my basketball into a soccer ball when the guys that were playing soccer needed a soccer ball. And so I kind of, at an early age, learned this whole, when something doesn't go right, find another solution. And I think that's a big key of really my way of looking at things creatively. But then it didn't really stop, and it actually got worse because, as you know, came from a family of educators, so I'm the kid who has two principals as parents, and I'm always in the front of the classroom.
Yes. Yeah.
So I get pegged as kind of that overachiever, when all I knew was that this is what I really should be doing because that's what my parents said. But it worked against me, and I actually, left schools to go to another school, and that next year was absolutely the worst. Getting followed, threatened in fights. I was not only the new kid, but I was a new kid with freckles. That was the nerd, and actually returned back to the initial school. So I, got bullied out of a couple schools, and there was a pivotal point where I locked my door. There was no doors allowed to be locked in my house, and so I put a barricade on it. And I was just in the corner crying, listening to "Don't Worry, Be Happy" like on repeat, and just totally trying to just like reconcile why. And my dad kicks in the door, storms in, and just sees me in a total mess. And he's like, "That's it. Come with me." And we went and signed up for karate like that day. Wow. And we'd always been into Chuck Norris and Van Damme, and that was like our little thing where like I could watch rated R movies and Steven Seagal and Chuck Norris.
I remember those, yeah.
And that was a huge turning point because it makes me so sad to think about like that actual moment. But martial arts in general was able to turn it around, and when I knew that I could start defending myself, then talking about these microtransactions in your body, I feel like I transformed, and people knew not to mess with me, or I knew how to avoid situations, or I would use my ability to predict what's happening to avoid what would be bad. And so that was a turning point for me. And I've always had a soft spot for people who have been targets of bullying. And then as I graduated college and got into the startup scene after some epic failures in the real world, I got into smartphone app development and was part of the first app that ever addressed cyberbullying. It's called Word Bully. Got a bunch of awards and had a lot of traction, and it filtered 4,700 words in English and Spanish that would identify as a word that could be a bullyish word, and instead of sending it to your phone, it would send it to your parents' phone, and then that person would deal directly with the person sending the threats via text message, because that was it still is an issue, and it was an issue. So what we then did to promote this app, we got a tour bus and we traveled around from city to city, and we started giving presentations to middle schools, elementary schools, and high schools. And that was really the first time that I ever publicly shared my own experience. And to be able to connect with these students and these young people when I still was very youthful at the time, but to share my story and how I overcame it, and that there is light outside the tunnel. I'll never forget the moments of the people who came up to me afterwards, or the people that would reach out to me afterwards. And that is really where, for me, I've found the power of public speaking. And that just got me so excited as having these tools to be able to communicate. And my life has taken, exciting turns and twists and bumps and whatnot from there. But being bullied as a kid and not understanding why, and then really learning about my own body and the way I carry myself to speak without speaking, was kind of a magical recipe that really has helped form the person that I am today.
You are extraordinary. I am sitting here with my eyes closed, listening to you and in awe. I already knew, and I know this sounds weird, but this is who I am. I already knew I loved you. And now I just want to put my arms through the phone line, right? And grab you. Because this is what makes you so magnificent though, Ryan, because to your point, you took something that most people look at challenges in our life, right? All the hardships, all the woe is me. And you took from this, and fortunately you were very blessed to have parents that were there to help figure out what are we, you know what I mean, to keep moving forward. And with or without that, you've empowered yourself with the tools, and then taking what you learned from that as an opportunity to make a difference in our world. I mean, look what you've done I'm covered in goosebumps. You've gone out and taken the story of your own, stuff you've had to deal with that a lot of people don't want to talk about. You chose to talk. It's
embarrassing. It's, when things happen where you're sort of the weak person in the story, I think a lot of times we try to avoid that, but it's the opposite. I think that really through those weak moments, you have that choice. You either get upset about it, or you try to find a solution. And sometimes you just need to know that someone else has either gone through it or is going through it. And there's a bit of, camaraderie that gives power to someone else that is actively going through it. And that's whether it's anything from as evil spousal abuse to verbal abuse to, I'm very passionate about bullying in the workplace. And there's just so many easy ways for people to get taken down, and I just protect myself from that. For example, on my Twitter feed, I love to tweet because it's a challenge to say whatever you want in a very short amount of time. That's what I'm all about.
That's what you're about. Yeah, I know. I have a policy. I have no politics and no trolls, and anything that smells like anything. I'll just say, I appreciate your comment, but this is not an area for it. I don't stand for it. I appreciate you if you, if this is where it stops. And I have a lot of positive feedback from that. And I just surround myself with positive people, with positive vibes, and people, when they introduce me, they'll be like, this guy's always in a good mood. He's always positive. How do you do that? And it's honestly because that's what I look for. That's what gets me excited. And, what I do is so fulfilling because I get so much out of helping other people. And the 313 is such a low technology. I was in Haiti and I was in China just about a month ago. And to help people that don't have a full grasp of the English language, let alone the American fast-paced culture in the startup world, to say, here are the steps. Do this, do this, do this, do this. I'm not changing their voice. I'm not changing their ideas. I'm not changing anything, but I'm helping give them a structure to allow them to get more people interested in what they're doing, even before they tell them what they're doing. Because there's human interaction. And like you said, it comes down to making people feel loved in a conversation, and you do that by saying less and listening more. And I did not know you were in China a month ago, because when we talked, I guess that was right. You must have just gotten back.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Tell me about that experience. That one just went right to my heart. What
Yeah.
was that like for you?
So I got invited to go and speak at the China Marketing Summit in Shenzhen. And then while I was out there, I also lined up a gig in Hong Kong. And the startup community is thriving over there, but everybody is looking this way for how to really communicate and get the halo effect of how things are done in the U.S. I mean, there's a lot of innovation around the world, but still everybody's looking towards us at the sort of the lead dog. And so I brought over my 313, and just the feedback is crazy. When somebody after a workshop says, I have tried every method and I have searched and I have been to this and this and this, and I have never seen anything like this, because I feel like I get it right now. I can use it. And to me, it just gives me the willies. And I wish he gave me more freckles and goosebumps, but it's usually the former than the latter.
Of course. I love it. But even to think, with even not having the same common language, how simple this is. Like, I'm just keep sitting in here in my mind thinking, where has this been our whole life? Right?
Yeah.
That's what it feels like, Ryan. It's
it works too for describing what you do. And, we could do a whole show about it, but in essence, the nuts and bolts of the 313, to explain your idea in 3 sentences, you explain the problem you solve in 1 sentence, the solution to that problem in 1 sentence, and who you are targeting, who your market is. That's 3 sentences. And it's not rocket science that your problem and the market and the solution are key components to communicating. But when you put limitations on it and you say, what is the single biggest problem, and put it in a sentence, no more. What is your solution? And I have a whole iceberg theory, which is a fun shortcut to communication. If someone asks you what you do versus somebody asking you how you do what you do, what's the difference between what and how? Just a real quick tangent.
Oh, I love that. The difference between what and how?
Yeah.
What is basically the future? But it's not telling you how you're going about it. How is just about like, how am I going to do this? I could tell you what I love to do, but how am I doing that? There's a big difference in how I would answer the question, right?
Yeah. And so here's the thing. You've got it, is that how is a process, procedure, it's dynamic. There's a lot of elements to it. What is very simple. It's just what you do. So imagine that what is at the top of an iceberg. Then you have the ocean, and then you have underneath this huge, massive how. But what happens is that the communication mistake is that when someone asks you what you do, most people will answer how they do what they do. And if you stop yourself, and when somebody asks you what you do, and you just simply say, this is what I do, period. If they're interested at all, guess what they're going to say?
Tell me how you do that. Tell me
exactly.
more. Tell me
and
more.
And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited that you want to know now.
Yes.
And then you want to get really meta in it. And you say, well, before I tell you how I do it, how much do you know about what I do? And if they have no idea, then you tell it all. And if they're like, well, actually, my husband, he's actually in that field, and I kind of know a little bit. And you go, awesome. So I don't need to explain to you how in everything. But let's assume that you know this, and here's the magic sauce. Here's what I do differently. And so you've taken what typically will turn into what do you do with an emotional and verbal throw up to telling them very, very simply, I'm an educator, I'm a doctor, or I work in communications. Well, how does that work? And so, again, the 3 sentences is the problem you solve in 1 sentence, the solution in 1 sentence, and your market in 1 sentence. And then if you do break those down individually, you can combine them all into 1 sentence 6 different ways. I solve this problem for this person. Here's how I do it. For these people that have this problem, here's how I do it. Here's what I do for these people with this problem. It's just mathematics. You rearrange those elements. And then the 3 words really taps into people's existing mental maps of what they already know. And you explain your idea in terms of things that have nothing to do with what you're doing, but help people connect the dots. It's like a verbal riddle, right? Like think of instead of saying I'm a personal branding expert, I could say, think of me as a blacksmith of branding. And you think everybody knows what a blacksmith is and how much work goes into a single piece, and you know what branding is, and you can make this somewhat assumption of you kind of get what I do. Or I'm a black belt of branding. Now you can immediately take everything you know about black belt and it halos into an idea. Then everything that you say after that initial setup, people are going to be trying to figure out and guessing what you do. And the total Jedi trick of communication is to talk with people about what you do without telling them, and then having them go, wait, I get it. You do this. And you're like, oh my gosh, you're so smart. Yes.
It just took you down this journey and you figured it out.
Because if you've ever been in a group project, like when you make a decision and that you're like, I want to use this image, and the group chooses that image, you're like, yes, that's my image. There's ownership when you're involved. And if you're just talking at people and you're not talking with people, you're going to be putting people in a spot where they don't have any investment in your conversation. So the more you can get people to talk in your conversation, the more invested they are, the more excited they are about it. And when they leave, they're going to be like, what an amazing conversation. But the trick is you've just gotten them to talk, and that's exciting for them.
Absolutely. And we both know that the greatest conversations people have when they leave, I think you and I talked about this, if people were to close their eyes and go think back on a great conversation, when you leave that conversation, if you pause, you realize you did most of the talking because somebody was asking you questions and listening. And it's amazing how it's such human nature, and yet it's so subliminal. We don't actually put conscious thought to that. I love this. Okay, so I'm making you a deal. When I come to be on your show, and I want you to tell everybody about your show. When I'm going to be a guest on your show in October, I want to take some time and I want you to do your magic. I'm sitting here thinking I could have done this on the show right now and had you walk me through, but I want to leave people with this carrot that you've just dangled, because I want people, if you're sitting there thinking, for everybody out there listening to this, that you're just gnawing at you. Do you just want to bite on this right now, right? And go, oh, I want more. That's what I want. I want you to reach out to Ryan. So I'm going to have him in just a minute tell everybody how to reach out to him. And then I'm personally going to commit to all of my listeners that I'm going to engage in this myself, and I will share how it went, which I know it'll go marvelous, and see what it's got my mind going 100 miles an hour. I'm supposed to be celebrating you, and I'm already thinking about the 3 questions, the 313. And Ryan, you know what I'd love? Wow. This is just, I can't wait till I get to see you. I would love, we covered 2 really important things right now. One is the magic that you're helping people create for their businesses, but really it starts with self and then the business. And the other piece is sharing your story. And so I have a lot of listeners around the world that listen to the show with their families, as a family at dinner and with their children. And I would just love, what wisdom, I'm going to get a little emotional. What wisdom or advice would you share, whether it's with a parent or a child that is currently dealing with this horrific essence of bullying that's worse than it's ever been? So I just thank you for creating an app to help enable this. But what would you tell people? What advice would you give us? What could we go do? Charge us.
Yeah, well, because my favorite number is 3, I'm going to give you 3 quick ones. All right. Number 1 is find something that you're good at. Because for me, it ended up being karate, and it was hockey, and it was wrestling, and it was pole vault. And the more you focus on finding something that you're good at, that you enjoy, then you realize very quickly that you have value, that you have your own truth, and it's a very quick way to find independence and positive reinforcement. So I always encourage people to get involved with sports or activities or music or whatever it is, whatever your thing is. Find it, because there's nothing more exciting than incremental improvement. So getting better at things is something that I always tell people they should do. Number 2, I think that finding other people who have similar stories really helps you to understand that whatever you're going through right now could be the best thing in retrospect. And it may be absolutely miserable now, and you may be hating the whole thing. But if you talk to enough people that are going through something similar, I mean, like even Tony Robbins, his story is just crushingly devastating. And he had so many trials and tribulations, and learning his story, like literally gives me power. And so finding other people that you admire, that you respect, they all have a backstory, and many of them dealt with issues. But if you find other people that are inspiring and that are, there to be positive supports for you, that's amazing. And the third one is sometimes the most difficult, but I believe it is the most powerful. And it's a simple act that takes a few muscles in your face, and it's smiling.
Oh, I knew it.
Honestly, people ask me for my best tips of advice, and I'll tell them to smile. Smile more. Wake up and smile at yourself in the mirror. It may seem cheesy, but psychologically, you can't be unhappy when you're smiling. And even just smiling to someone sets off a chain of reactions around you. And if you go throughout your day and do a test, one day don't smile at all. The next day, smile at every opportunity, and you will see a notable difference. So it's the easiest, fastest way to feel good, even when you're feeling bad. And if you really are angry, just put a pencil in your mouth and bite on it, and you can't help but have kind of a half-assed smile, and you can still be angry at it.
I love that. Wait, I just had the best visual of all these people grabbing little pencils and shoving it in their mouth. Yes, and it's like
not in, but to the side, right? It's like biting on a stick. Like if you bite on a stick, it actually triggers some of those same muscles, and your body will release some endorphins and dopamine, and you'll feel good for just a second, and you can still grind on it if you're angry.
Oh my God, I love this. So the three things, and this is so simple and easy. Find something you're good at. I would actually even add something that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
I'm big on that. Number 2 is find other people that share your story and or your passion. And that goes back to something we both firmly believe in, is I'm big on, there was that beautiful quote by Jim Rohn years ago. The 5 people you spend your most important time with are an indication of who you will become. Be very intentional around choosing people that lift you up rather than pull you down. And man, it makes such a difference, doesn't it?
The power of proximity. That's Tony Robbins. I've seen him a few times, and that's the one thing that he always leaves you with is, if you don't remember anything else, understand the power of proximity. Who you are around is who you become. So find inspiring people that are positive, people that are there to support you. And most people that have been through situations of trauma, they come around and want to help other people that are going through the same thing.
Absolutely. And that's why people like us that have, it just was not too long ago in this last year that I've started sharing some of my difficult times from the past, and not because I've never needed to. It just was never something. I never realized how powerful that could be, and how many people it gives them hope to know this too. You've been through this and you can survive, right? Then they don't feel so alone. So when we're willing to peel back the layers of the onion and get real and get honest, I think, and that's what this show is about. It's just, if there's one person out there whose life can be impacted for the better and realizes they're not alone in their own darkness of the room they're sitting in right now. I always want people to know you're not alone. There's always somebody else. And that's what this is about. And Ryan, you are a gift, my friend. I ask all my guests this, but I kind of feel like we've heard it throughout, but very top of mind. If you were to give your 25-year-old self advice based on who you are today and who you know yourself to be, what advice would you give that young man?
You have a choice to look at things in a negative light or find a positive viewpoint. And that is the one single thing that you have the most control over, because you don't have control over other people or what they think about you or what they do. The only thing you have control over is your attitude about life. And thoughts become words, words become things, and guess what? You have control of your own thoughts. So if a situation happens, you can look at the negative side, or if a situation happens, you can try to find the positive elements of it. And that, to me, is really a value of life, quality of life, right? As we get older, we talk about how important the quality of life is. But in your youth, quality of life is just as important. So if you're working hard and you feel like you're stressed because of XYZ, look at the positive side of it. And, you will be known for the person that has that positive outlook, and you'll have a positive influence and bring other people up. So you've got the choice. It's really the only thing that you have the choice of, and it's your own attitude.
And you know what I just loved is every day I wake up, and I share this with people everywhere. I choose joy. It's a choice. And I just realized I should hashtag choose joy. Ryan, you choose joy. It's who we are. And it is a choice. It's all about choosing. That's just the way we choose to live. And I love that. Thank you, my friend. I would love for you, tell everybody, I know they're dying to know, how can they reach out to you if they have questions? Tell them about your shows, from your radio show to your podcast. Tell us all about how they can hear more from you.
Yeah, the Grand Central Station is ryanfoland.com. And the train is my Twitter account. So if you want to follow me around, follow me on Twitter. And that's at Ryan Foland, which is my name. And you put a www and a .com, and that's the train station. So you can either wait for me at the train station or you can ride on the train with me. And then the entertainment on the train comes in a variety of forms. One being, if you're looking for insight on the world of social media, my radio show is Get Notified, and you can find that at the Grand Central Station as well. Then I'm launching a podcast called The World of Speakers, where I interview amazing people like Holly who spread their words around the world. And it's not so much a how to make money speaking. It's, learning stories from speakers, finding their advice, and then what they've done to find success. So it's really an amazing angle that I think is needed out there. And my company, Influence Tree, just like growing your influence as a tree, is influencetree.com. And we have a number of courses, everything from helping you to get on the TEDx stage to our core personal branding product. We're launching a future experts product for 16-year-olds who are in high school trying to stand out in a crowd of crazy college applications, strategic communications, all that kind of stuff. And so that's it. So there's the train station at my main website. The entertainment is the radio and the podcast. And then if you'd like to study while you're on the train, we've got the courses for you covered.
Oh my God. And I love it. Did you catch that? It's 3, the train station, the train, and then the entertainment on the train. And I'm just sitting there. The power of 3s. I'm seeing them everywhere I go, by the way, since you and I did your show. I'm noticing things all the time. It is amazing how apparent it will become. And for everyone out there, just a huge thank you. I send a huge virtual hug to you, Ryan. Thank you for the time, for your expertise, for your wisdom. Most of all, thank you for being a beautiful soul on this planet, spreading the goodness. Thank you.
Yay!
Yay! All right. Well, on that note, have an amazing day and have a ridiculously fun week.
Don't forget to smile.
Yes. Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.